Edgar Allan, Chapter 19. Life was quiet then for a while. Everyone went his own way, except of course for S.A. and Stephen, who were just about as pretty much as before. Sally Ann missed E.A. There was no doubt about that. But it wasn't kind of sad of missing. It was more like she had lost her favorite toy. She just hadn't quite so much to do or so many people to teach. She wondered where E.A.'s family lived and whether it was far away and what E.A. would do about school if they lived in another city. When she came to ask if I thought if we would be able to visit E.A. sometime, I can't remember what I told her. Whatever it was short. Mother was the quietest of all. She did these things she had to, and remembered to go to the store and pick up 2 little kids at school and to cook dinner. But you didn't hear her use one extra word more than she had to. She said yes and no and ask your father, and everyone knew that it would take time for her to be herself again. Father kept to his church and to the study there, which was just as well as far as I could see. When he came home, he spent his time playing with S.A. and Stephen. It was sort of nice watching if you happened to be watching, but you never forgot that he was just playing, pretending that is, and that he was really thinking about something else. It also meant he didn't have to talk with Mother, for Mother hadn't spoken very much to Father since E.A. left. They both tried hard not to be alone together. They hadn't argued, really, but they had. It was one of those things I can't explain. It was more like they were both afraid of each other and of suddenly saying something they would regret later. Aunt Ann spent most of her time in her room. I never know what she does there, but whatever it is, she does it quietly. I used to pass her door once in a while and stand outside a minute, not really eavesdropping. She does that, not me, but trying to get a clue. There wasn't any. I did a lot of reading in those days. I read about Charles I, who had lost his head, and about Mary of Scotland, even a little about Bernadotte of Sweden, who really didn't belong with the rest of my people at all. Still, he had guts. He stood up to Napoleon and got to be his own king, sort of. He was what you would have called a whole man. Then, one day after school, Ann and I were sitting outside on the grass together. We weren't talking, just sitting. It was sort of funny because we had never done this before. It just happened. Like we both felt very tired at the same time and sat down to rest together. We were sitting there looking up at the trees when S.A. and Stephen Paul came out from the house. So there were 4 of us just sitting one afternoon. From almost nowhere, a man began walking up the path. I hadn't heard a car's door slam or seen him coming. He just appeared. An okay-looking guy with no hat, no briefcase, or anything like that. He got to where we were all, smiled and sat down at the same time, just as if he belonged there. Sally Ann didn't think he did, and so right away she asked who he was. My name is Joe Ryder, he said, and smiled at her. I work for a newspaper in San Francisco. What are you doing here? Ann asked very fast when she heard this. She was really sort of mean-sounding. Just sitting here wondering what you're all thinking about. Nothing that would interest you, I'm sure, said Ann. Oh, was it you? What was it you thought we were thinking about, I asked. Oh, Joe Ryder said, I thought maybe you might be thinking about Edgar Allan. Nothing very deep or serious. Maybe remembering him. Do you know E.A.? Sally Ann asked. We took care of him. How did you do that? Ryder asked. Well, said S.A., all smiles and full of pride, we were taking care of him until his own real family could be found. And I taught him all kinds of things that he would need to know when he grew up. That was nice of you. Was he a good student? Ryder asked. He was okay, S.A. decided after a minute. He's smarter than Steve and Paul here, but not quite so smart. He was not smarter than me, Stephen shot up. Well, in some things, S.A. said quickly. Not in everything, but in some things. Was he really doing well in school? That's silly, Sally Ann told Ryder. You don't get marks in grades in preschool. You just learn simple things there. I forgot, Joe Ryder said. Mr. Ryder, M.N., why are you here, really? What is it you want? He first thought, I guess I came, he said, to finally find out about how you felt toward Edgar Allan and about how he lived here. It would interest some people who read in our newspaper. I can't think how, M.N. said coldly. I was sort of surprised. Knowing M.N. as I do, I would have thought she would have died to get her name in the newspaper. Edgar Allan lived with us, and he grew up a little, and then he went away. That's all. That's all there is to it, if you must know. Nothing else. Just one family then, hey? Mary Nell? He asked. M.N. was startled for a second because Ryder knew her name. But she came back strong. Just exactly, Mr. Ryder. Just exactly that way, she told him. How did you feel about giving him away then? Ryder asked suddenly. M.N. nearly jumped out of her skin. His voice was nearly as cold as hers had been, and I think she was frightened. And then she thought about S.A. and S.P., who were, of course, taking all this in. I don't know what you mean, she said again, sort of cool. We didn't do anything special, S.A. We just were keeping him until his own mother and father could take care of him. He could have stayed longer if he wanted to. Sally Ann, said Ryder, smiling as nicely as he could at her. Edgar Allan could have stayed as long as you wanted him to, not as long as he wanted. I stood up as fast as I could. Mr. Ryder, it's dinner time, I said. Maybe you better talk to my mother or father if there's anything you want to know. All we know is that we already told you. M.N. was standing up too. I don't think she said that you could ask Sally Ann any questions, or Stephen either, or Michael or me. Mr. Ryder, why don't you go away? Then why is everyone mad all of a sudden? Asked Sally Ann. Never mind, I told her. Just come in. Let's go in. No, S.A. answered. What did he mean? We could keep E.A. Nothing, I said. He doesn't know anything. Come on, S.A. He must know something, she said. He works for the newspaper. I sort of felt sorry for Joe Ryder, but only for a second. He couldn't know why M.N. and I were so quick, so sudden. Still, he should have let it go. He shouldn't have, and he didn't. He wouldn't. But I didn't know until the next day.